because I would do that every time. I would go get my scriptures out, look in the mirror, and just talk about how pure I am after just rolling in the mud. But what I was doing is I was changing the seed.
Mm-hmm.
I was planting a different seed. And it was maybe 3 to 4 months of doing that I clicked the red X in the corner, and I haven't been back in 15 years, completely free from it.
Welcome to DFW Grit. I'm Dr. James Taylor, and I'm your host, and this is more than just a podcast. We dive into the stories of the movers, the shakers, the small business owners, the entrepreneurs, right here in the DFW Metroplex. This is your home for authentic, real stories that prove what happens when you don't back down. Let's get to work. But no, like it's wild too. Like,
Yeah.
So, like I said, we've had a few of these talks in very recent times, within the past week or two. And so I made a post. I've got my Facebook page, James Taylor, and then I've got like my public figure page, and I got my business page, podcast page. And so just from a business standpoint, what I'm doing is, I put car stuff on the car page, I put podcast stuff on this page. But to kind of, elevate myself as, someone to look to on my public figure page, I'm testing out these long form writings. And basically it started as a journal. Like, I don't know, I'm a guy, I don't journal. But if I make it a post, okay, cool. Now here's my journal. And it has evolved into something incredibly therapeutic. And one of the things that I put on there about a week or so ago was when I first broached this topic with her about, just uncomfortabilities that I've been having. And I noticed, so this was over a weekend. And I'll tell you what, that Monday, I woke up and I wrote in this post, my body's been hurting, like physically hurting since like Thanksgiving, give or take. And I that's just a rough estimate of the calendar, but it's been just, I still do my workouts. I still, I'm a chiropractor. I still get adjusted. I do the physical things to take care of myself. Yeah. My body's been hurting. And I woke up Monday morning after initiating this talk with my wife, and I was getting ready, and I went to go work out in the morning. Felt strong. It felt good that day. I'm like, all right, cool. Today's a good day. And I didn't think anything of it. We all have good days at the gym. Fuck yeah, I feel strong today. And then I go home and I get dressed, and my kids' bedrooms are upstairs. And I'm walking upstairs. I'm like, man, this stairs are easy this morning. And then, I lean over and I give them kisses in their bed. They're still sleeping. And I was like, I'm not holding as much weight up in my arms. My back doesn't hurt as much. And then I'm coming downstairs and I'm like, oh, I'm just walking down the stairs. I'm not holding on to the railing. And it was in that moment, literally walking down the stairs, that it clicked. I had a talk with my wife about things that were bothering me that I had been otherwise keeping inside. And then the day after it happened, dude, I sprang out of bed. I was, I felt my age. I didn't feel older than my age. And on the post, I talk about how, like, my wife makes these comments all the time. She works in leadership and personality development. And she's like, yeah, people hold their stress here. You got this, that, and the other going on. And I would nod in agreement, like, yeah, that sounds plausible, if you will. But literally, as I'm walking down the stairs, it clicks. My knees don't hurt. My feet don't hurt. Giving my kids a kiss didn't hurt. My workout was great. I've changed nothing except I had a conversation with my wife. Shit. Right.
I think that's a key thing to focus on. I mean,
Absolutely.
If we can turn the corner and focus on that a little bit, I mean, because, there's passages in the scriptures talked about bitterness rots the bones, and it connects the mental well-being to the physical well-being. That's permeated all throughout the scripture. I mean, people feel like they are inventing these like new ideas. Like, no, that was already spoken of that in the scriptures long time ago. So we know that our physical well-being is connected to our mental and emotional well-being, and those things have an impact on our physicality. But I love Proverbs 23, and it says, as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. And so that dominant thought in your heart has such a great impact that it says that is what you are. And so what is that dominant inner thought that you harbor, and focusing on that more so than the physical thing on the outside? We spend so much time trying to change the outside, modify behavior, modify physical ailments in the body. Instead, if we would first take a step back and realize that those things are only byproducts, can be a lot of times byproducts of what's happening in here. And so
100%.
that's why we feel the need. It's like, let's get these dads, let's get the can opener out. That's what Lonestar Dads is. We're the dad Oprahs.
I like that.
We're the can
The
openers.
Dopras. There's your t-shirt.
The Dopra.
Dopras.
Dope, bro.
Count it. That's right.
Dope, bro.
Exactly. It writes itself.
So we're just trying to crack that emotional can open, and that side that we're not in touch with as much, so that we can begin to have those kind of experiences, and we'll begin to realize that we'll find a lot of alignment by dealing with the root instead of dealing with the fruit. And I just want to give this testimony real quick, because I was early in my marriage, probably the first 5 years of my marriage. And before, I was still so stuck in pornography, and I didn't want to be. And I felt like it was unfaithful to my wife. I wanted so deeply to be free from this habit that would grip me. I didn't want to go click those buttons, but I would find myself clicking those buttons. I was like, God, what is the deal? And I remember just, I don't want to like make this like out to be some kind of super holy experience. It wasn't. It was very down to earth. It wasn't like an angel descended and like light and clouds broke open. It's just a very internal conversation that I was having with myself and someone else. Right. And I just hear, if you want to change the fruit, change the seed. You're sowing tomatoes, hoping for corn.
Mm-hmm.
Can you think of how laborious that is?
Right.
To go sow tomatoes and then hope corn grows out of the ground. Like, that's what I was doing, because I was just trying to modify my external behavior to not click the buttons. Instead, what I did was I began to change the seed. And so I remember distinctly that I took it so serious that I had just been on it may have been like a 6-7 hour pornography binge. I mean, I was just binging on this. And I said, if you want me to change the seed, this is the perfect time. Just right after I clicked off the computer, I went and got my scriptures, and I began to read. I began to read different verses about purity, that God has made me pure, and He has cleansed me from unrighteousness, and that I am a new man. I'm created in new things. I'm a new creation. And all the hair stood up on the back of my neck the first time, right? I did it because it felt like sacrilege, right? Just because, again, modernity having an impact on my belief felt like that's not how you go to God. That's not how you use the scriptures. But man, I'm telling you, it wasn't but 3 to 4 months after that, because I would do that every time. I would go get my scriptures out, look in the mirror, and just talk about how pure I am after just rolling in the mud. But what I was doing is I was changing the seed.
Mm-hmm.
I was planting a different seed. And it was maybe 3 to 4 months of doing that I clicked the red X in the corner, and I haven't been back in 15 years, completely free from it. But what was the focus had to shift from just modifying behavior in the outside or fixing physical ailments to what's in here.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what we want to do with Lonestar Dads, is crack open the can.
All right. Damn, man.
We went there.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I really do. Like, that's to literally to admit a vice, regardless, because like we've all got them. We've all. I mean, there are people that know whether it's a vice, whether it's, you know, there's the whole denial thing. I'm blanking on it. The stages you go through, if you will. There's a name for it, but I can't remember it. But just to own it like that is incredible. So if there are dads or men, whomever, shit, I'm sure you would talk to a woman that has an issue too. Yeah. If there is somebody that is in that point where they've reached, let's call it the acceptance or the acknowledgement that there's something that they want to change. Like, what do you think that next step is to actually turn that acknowledgement into action, to actually change the seed, as opposed to just hoping harder for the the fruit and the harvest.
God's got you speaking today, bro. Bring it.
What is that point of action that just takes it from, okay, I've acknowledged this,
Mm-hmm.
but now how do I implement what I've acknowledged? Right? I acknowledge I have a problem and I need to change it.
And then just real quick for like that could be a problem. You brought up pornography. It could be drinking. It could be not communicating. It could be the guy who gets lost in his work. Like there's all kinds of vices that society. I don't mean to sound bad. There's all kinds of vices society accepts. Right? Like, oh, he's a workaholic.
Right.
Like,
he eats a lot.
He eats a lot. Yeah. There's all kinds of stuff like that. But there's people who have those vices that like on the outside, like it's. Well, he works a lot. This guy just enjoys his food. He likes making barbecue, like whatever. Just let him be. But on the inside, like it's something that he wants to change. You had something you wanted to change, but you kept doing it. But you wanted to change, but you kept doing it. What do you think is just something for a guy watching or listening to kind of look at, like, or hell, maybe if it's even just noticing that, again, kind of back to what we were saying at the beginning. Shit, that feeling sounds a lot like the same feeling I have about whatever my vice might be.
Sure. There's another key verse. It's James 5:16, and it says, confess your faults one to another so that you may be healed. And it's talking about being healed and restored from whatever that thing is in your life. But that fault, to be healed of it, to be restored. So you have acknowledgement, and that's usually an internal thing, which is great. When someone can acknowledge something that they need to change, like the humility that requires, it's incredible that when that's happening, because that's going to lead to the next step, which is, I always encourage them, okay, you need to confess these faults one to another so that you can be healed. And so when you confess and you tell other men, this is what I'm walking through, this is what I need to change, like you're lowering yourself. Like Joe was talking about, he lowered himself, and you're opening yourself up to be healed of that thing, because now you're exposing it and you're bringing it to the light. What we like to do is keep these things in the dark, in the shadows, keep them under the table. And that's where the devil does his best work, is in the dark. And so bring those things out and expose them in the light. And like it says in John 1, walk in the light as I am in the light, and have fellowship with one another. And in that fellowship, there's all these kinds of interactions where I'm telling Joe my struggles. I tell the guys I have several men's groups, and I just live absolutely transparently before them. I yelled at my kids Friday, and I hate when I yell at and I go there and I tell them and just be honest about what I'm walking through. So I think acknowledgement will lead to confession, which can lead to healing. But we have to get past this idea that hiding it and keeping it in the dark is going to be beneficial, because it won't be. The most beneficial thing you can do is just put it into the light.
And I think you even experienced that with what you've recently gone through, because while keeping it in the dark, while not acknowledging it, while not addressing it, while not discussing or talking about it, you actually felt the physical manifestations of pain throughout your body. So something you felt might actually be valuable to keep to myself was the very thing that was hurting yourself. And so it's funny. I was literally like, I got something to say, but Ladrell's killing it. So I'm gonna let him say it. And then he said the exact thing in the exact verse I was gonna say.
I saw your hand jump.
Exact thing. But then another thing that I would add to that, Jesus says in Matthew 11, he says, come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from it. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And so I just think of the opposite of that. We like to think of like, oh, coming to Jesus means I got to confess all my sins and I just got to see myself as this terribly bad human who's just sinful all the time. And he's like, actually, I have a much lighter yoke for you than even you have for yourself. Because all this heaviness that I think that I carry all the time is self-induced. It's because instead of bringing it to the one who actually has a much lighter yoke, he'll take it off the weight and he'll replace it with his yoke, which he says is much lighter and less burdensome. And so we choose to keep it in thinking that it's going to be lighter to be able to hold it this way, when actually it's self-induced heaviness. And he's saying, I will be what makes you light. We can't have fellowship with one another if we don't actually share and confess our faults. Because ultimately, like what he just did, like what you're talking about, what he just did liberates other men to now do the same.
Yeah.
Whereas before that, it's like, oh, I got to keep this private. I can't tell nobody about this. I can't talk about this. And ultimately, that's now a self-induced weight that you're constantly carrying that's too heavy for you to bear. And Jesus is like, come to me. I could take that weight off, put a much lighter one on, but you got to confess these things and share with one another.
And that goes back to what you were talking about. I'm unfazed by nothing. That's leadership. When you have
You're laughing
that,
No.
because you're calling it out, and that's what I have mad respect for you, because you're calling out these things that you realize are actually faults. But when you have that, I have to be unfazed by literally nothing can faze me, and that's what makes me a strong leader. You never get to these things that we're talking about, because you have to have on this constant armor, and I'm good. Worst day of your life, I'm good. No, you weren't. And so that's what that prevents. That's the logical thing that it prevents, when you feel like you have to be unfazed. And that's why we're saying, no, that's not what a strong leader is. A strong leader is often faced by things. And like Joe is talking about, how, Jesus literally was so in grief about something that he sweat blood. And that's a real thing that happens, where the capillaries in your forehead burst because of stress. And when you sweat, it'll mix with the sweat and you'll sweat blood.
Yep.
And he was so moved by what he was going through, but at the end of that, he says, not my will, but your will. And he was able to surrender regardless. But for him to show that and express that, and not sit around, it's recorded in the scriptures, 24,900 New Testament manuscripts floating around, all the Bibles that we have floating around tell this story of what we would call a weak moment in Jesus' life. And what we're saying is like, no, that wasn't weakness. That was one of the greatest strengths, to open up and say, yeah, I was addicted to pornography, or I am currently right now dealing with XYZ. That is strength. And so we want to flip these ideas on their head, because in the scriptures it also says the first will be last and the last will be first. And I think you could kind of twist that to say the strong will be weak and the weak will be strong.
And as it relates to our group, you might get the impression, if you're watching, that Lonestar Dads is a Christian group.
It's not.
Man, like, we're Christians. And so obviously that's what flows out of us.
Yep.
Is like, this is what marks our life. This is what represents our life. But because we believe that the principles are going to be the most advantageous for you in your life today. Not just because it's like, well, I'm supposed to follow the Bible and do everything it says. I actually believe that what the Bible says to do is going to produce the most fruit for you. And so when we're like engaging with dads, and we're seeing it happen so much when we're engaging with all these dads and connecting with them and getting into their lives, we're seeing the impact being fruitful in their lives. And like, even with what you just said, it's like, you explain something that's been represented in scripture for a very long time, about when you confess this stuff, you felt this newfound lightness that even in some ways took away physical pain inside of your body. And so it's like, man, that's why we're starting Lonestar Dads. Sure, we're Christians. We want to help with that message, but at the same time, it's because we believe that this is the stuff that's going to set men free. This is the real stuff that's going to make their marriages strong. That's going to make their families strong. It's going to make their businesses strong, so that they no longer rely on themselves. Because, and this was a passage that God had to deal with me about for a long time. Don't lean on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him. He'll make your path straight. So I've got this vision of like, this is what I want to do with my business. This is what I want to do with my family. This is where this needs to go. I have the strategy. I've got all the steps to be able to do this. This is how it's going to work out. Fail, 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 fail. Unless I shift that and say, don't rely on my own understanding. Don't see myself as the the provider or the savior or the one who can accomplish all these things. Acknowledge him. He will straighten our paths. And so we're trying to straighten our paths and help straighten other dudes' paths too in the midst of all the stuff they're going through.
And just a couple of points here. Like number one, you're right. It's not a Christian group. You guys are just Christians.
Yeah.
And I mean, there could very easily be people like, oh, I'm not a Christian. I'm this, that, or the other.
Come on, we want
Come.
And even exactly, come on, we want you, because that's still good advice. Like, where'd you hear that? I read it in a book somewhere. You don't know the author.
Yeah.
That's fine. Still doing the same thing. But going off to what you're talking about, how you want to lead dads into this kind of scenario, this kind of understanding, and then going off of what you're saying about, how so many people like keep things in there. Just the fact that you guys are doing this and sharing this kind of stuff. I mean, that in and of itself is going to be leadership that is going to help bring that stuff out. You share something like that, and then a dad's going to go, well, shit, I guess if he went, I guess I can go. Right? I mean,
Absolutely.
0 to 1 is way harder than 1 to 100. So if we got the 0 to 1 taken care of, if we've got a small, like, and not to beat this word to death, but cohort of guys in the group, they're like, hey, here's the stuff I'm struggling with. It literally invites other people to share their own stories.
And then it multiplies.
Exactly.
It multiplies to where there's many, many cohorts of all the same things happening.
Yeah, I feel like somewhere in a book I read somewhere it said all it takes is one.
Exactly.
No, dude, this was fantastic. I absolutely appreciate the time that you took away from your day here. In case somebody just tuned in at the end and only caught the back half of that, and they're wondering who the hell you are, again, Ladrell and Joe from Lonestar Dads. Where can people find this? Where can they get plugged in? Where can they get help or friendship or fellowship or whatever? Someone listens and goes, that's cool. I want to be part of that. I've never heard that before.
So Facebook is where most of our groups live. And we've got I think 18 or 19 chapters all over Texas. We run the Fort Worth and surrounding areas chapter. There's also a Dallas chapter. But connecting specifically to our group in the surrounding areas would be on Facebook for Lonestar Dads, Fort Worth and surrounding areas. We also have a website, lonestardads.com. We also have an app, a mobile app, which is called Lonestar Dads. Easy to find.
Clever.
We're trying to build the same community even inside of that for people that don't use Facebook. So those are kind of the primary areas. And then I'm Joe Crenshaw. He's Ladrell James. So even outside of that, you can find us on social media. And we'd love to connect. If you're like, man, I don't know how to get this stuff out in public, dude, come call us. Come talk to us. We will. This dude can't tell you how many times he's woken up at 3, 4 in the morning when I'm just wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
And he'll get his butt out of bed and forsake all sleep and be like, let me just be available and be present for this dude.
If I'm not mistaken, there was a post about a 2 a.m. phone call within the last couple of weeks.
There was. Yeah, he's that friend. That's who he is for sure. So yeah, and you didn't tell me to do this, but I just want to shout you out also for a number of reasons. One, obviously, like podcast, chiropractor, but besides that, there's something you do every Friday where you leave $100 at a restaurant. And first of all, that's just so generous. Even besides just I don't see it as a marketing thing for you at all. It's literally seems like something that you just really enjoy to do. And I know that because I was actually the one to experience that one time. He left $100 at a restaurant. I went and took my kids, and then my kids and I sent you a message, and your response to that message, just how glad you were and how thankful, and even posting that message of my children and how excited we were that you did this for us. I just love that stuff. And I think
appreciate that.
One, that's helpful for business, but two, it's just this just shows us a little bit about who James is, which is part of why
dude, those churros were freaking delicious.
The churros.
You ever had the churros? Yeah. The churros at Baja over on Precinct and North Tarrant.
Yeah.
Dude, they're good.
I'm going.
Yeah.
But okay, guys, man, I appreciate your time. As always, like I said, this is the end of every episode, and I feel it deserves repeating again today. You will learn more here by accident than elsewhere by design. Be sure to absolutely like, share, and follow, specifically this episode. Probably going to be a 2-parter. I don't know if you guys heard the timer go off a while ago.
Yeah, I did.
But otherwise, guys, thanks for tuning in. Check out the next episode. Check out Lonestar Dads, Fort Worth, or shoot, any other chapters. Apparently there's 18 in DFW, and I know there's growing around the country.
Yeah.
You guys have a great rest of your day.